do love her though. That one won't work. So. Alright, and now we are cooking with oil. There we go. Grease, oil, fire, whatever. So, alright, we're on lesson 16. I do not know what page that is because my copy doesn't have page numbers. Page 52. So, we're going to go ahead and pray and get started. Dear Lord, Father, thank you for this class. Thank you for everyone who stuck with it for the whole 16 weeks. It's wonderful to see, Father. I pray that you bless this time. Help us to learn, pick up some new things. And we love you, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so I want to go ahead and start off. Do we have any questions to kick off the class? Yes, ma'am.
So the page 48, it's the numbered time page.
Okay.
So 1 day?
1 day comes down like this.
Oh, this.
Yep. And
okay.
see, that is the disadvantage of pictures is
right. So 1 minute?
1 minute.
What? It's coming back to you?
Yeah. It can go either way.
This kind of looks like it's going out.
It can go either way. No, it goes either this way or this way, but it's just to like this minute.
Out. So away from you. Yeah.
It can go either way. It doesn't matter. Minute.
Oh, this.
Yes. Minute.
Gotcha.
Minute.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Any more?
If we have time, maybe at the end of class, on page 49, can we go through those
no
sentences?
page numbers.
Oh, it's the sentences at the end of lesson 14.
14.
Yeah.
Actually, we can talk about them right now.
Oh, okay.
So, because I don't think we'll have time at the end because I have some other stuff planned. So, because I want to show you all that video. It's a fun one. So, we're going to be in 5 days. That's how you would do that. You put the time first. 5 days. I need to see the teacher. Or you can do 5 days in the future. 5 days next. I need to see the teacher.
Okay.
So, in 9 minutes.
I need to go home.
City.
Oh.
City.
I
Yep.
don't know what I
You could also do city like this.
What is
Yeah.
C? What is C again?
C. And C, let's talk about that, because C can mean different things. Because I can say I need to see them. What I could really mean is I need to talk to them.
What's teacher?
Right.
Sorry, what's
Teacher. No, don't be sorry. Teacher. Because you can say I need to talk to the teacher. Like that. My helper is 2 days late. Y'all want to take a guess at that one?
Well, time comes first, right? So you'd say
Yes, except that's not specifying the time that this is happening. It's describing
My helper
the
took
state
my
of the
2
teacher
days.
or the helper.
My helper late 2 days.
Yeah, my helper.
2 days. Okay. 2 days.
My helper is not 6 minutes late. So you already got the my helper.
It's helper.
Helper is not. You have that?
so it's the same order of words.
That one, yes.
Signing.
That
okay.
one, yes.
Okay.
I don't need to see the teacher in 3 minutes. And that one you do put the time
So
first.
3 minutes will come first. Okay.
3 minutes? I don't need to see. So, there we go. So, any more
Okay,
questions?
that's good. Thank you.
All right, so let's discuss one of my favorite things to teach, idioms. I like, if you all know, you've probably seen her in church, Amy Murdoch. If you see us do the interpreting, she is the young lady who interprets for us. So she'll help us with the songs every so often. I say every so often, it's usually every couple weeks. So I joke with her because one time she was taking my sign language class here at the church. And we used to have a rolling class every Sunday, just before Deaf Church that I would teach. And I joked with her because we had for like 3 weeks in a row, we had different people there every week except for Amy. And I am a professional teacher. So if I have a different group of students, I'm just going to do the same lesson because I don't want to do more prep work. So, even if I have a lesson ready to go, I mean, I could just hold off on that one and do the one I did last time because why make extra work for myself? I can save that other one for later. So,
Who's gonna know?
and so it was just Amy. Amy was there every week though, except everybody else changed, and they were like 10 people classes. So I mean, we just for some reason we just had different people every week, and so she sat through my idiom lesson like 3 times just in those 3 weeks, and she's seen it a lot of different times before that. So, but idioms, these are fun, lots of fun. So, who remembers for all of our, especially our school students here, do you remember what idioms are?
You
They-
substitute a sign for like you substitute what something would be like getting into a car or.
No, that's a classifier. Think of a classifier. Any of our people who are out of school remember?
They translate, but not literally.
Yes,
Some
they are
literal.
phrases that do not literally translate into other languages. So if you say them in other languages, they don't make sense. It's raining cats and dogs. So that's a classic example. A more modern example is like when my students say that something is lit. If you're familiar with that, it's lit. Oh man, those shoes are lit. Everyone in high school is like,
That was the most teacher thing I've
that was the most teacher thing ever, yes. Yes. So, but lit is an example. If you're not familiar, lit means it's really cool. But if you just say it's lit, you mean it's on fire, and that's not what that literally means. But if you were just to translate that word for word into Spanish, you're gonna say it's en fuego. I mean, it's on fire. So that doesn't make sense in Spanish because they're gonna be like, let me get the fire extinguisher. I'm ready. So
And they
that's
can like get every
that's an idiom. That's what idioms are. And we in English we don't notice it because most of us are native English speakers, and so we don't notice it. But English has a lot of idioms. We do it. I didn't realize how much English uses idioms until I started interpreting. It's just phrases that just other languages don't use them, and that includes ASL. Stuff like, oh, it's just water off a duck's back. So you say that in French, and they're looking for a duck. So they're like, oh, what? So it just. And in other languages, I joke about English, but other languages do this all the time also. You probably know a few in Spanish. I don't know
I
any.
don't.
You
Not
don't?
off the top of my
My-
head.
Mhm.
Some
idioms.
Which
No,
one's that?
idioms in Spanish.
Yeah, idioms. I know there are. I had a Spanish teacher show us some. I don't remember. Something about powder your nose being a euphemism, like meaning like you're going to the bathroom or something like that. I don't remember.
Is kill 2 birds with 1 stone an idiom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because
it is.
you're not really killing birds.
Because you're not really killing birds, and that's exactly an
Yeah,
idiom.
yeah.
You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You say
Fish out of water.
yeah, a fish out of water is another
Yeah.
example.
And then the bird person kills you.
And then the bird. Yes, so these are idioms, and English has a lot of them. Other languages have a lot of them too. ASL is no exception. We have them in ASL also. And so let's look at some of them. This one is a very famous one. It's a good one to know. Train gone. Do you know that one? So, yeah. But you know what it means?
You missed it.
But like, person says to you, hey. No,
Probably
that's
not.
fine, that's fine, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Does you missed it? Is train gone
Missed it.
specifically for trains or like?
No,
you
not
you
for
could say
not for
car.
trains. Our closest example in English is you missed the boat.
It's over your head.
It's over your head. Yes, yes. I like to use the. You're right, but I like that you missed the boat because it still has the idea that you missed something. Because that's the idea with train gone. This means train, and then it's off into the horizon, getting smaller. And it means you missed the boat. You missed it. It's gone. It's not coming back. Bunch of people standing around talking, and they start laughing, and I walk up and go, "What's so funny?" And they go, "Train gone. I missed it." So it's not coming back. So train is gone. Train gone. So you missed the boat.
So what are you making a letter T and sliding it across your hand?
I make 2 H's. I'm rubbing them at the top, and then I'm switching to a G and a pointer finger.
Okay, won't be remembering that one anytime soon.
know. Hi again. Interrupting my class again. Come on in, Liesel. Do you remember Train Gone?
Train, oh yeah, choo-choo, yeah.
Train Gone? No, you remember the sign?
That looks like it right there.
You remember what it means?
Yeah,
You missed it.
you're heading out the door real soon, getting fired at, no.
No, you're close.
I'm
Kinda,
close.
not really, but.
No, refresh my memory.
It means you missed the boat.
I missed the boat,
Yeah.
just like I just missed the boat right there.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I clearly need to take that spot right
You
there.
need to take this class again. So, we'll be doing another part in like late January, early
Where
February.
he doesn't talk.
Yeah, I won't be talking. It'll be all.
Will you be interpreting for him?
Oh, there'll be no interpreting for me.
I
I forbidden
to
it.
interpret
That'd
for
be a
him, but
good
it won't
story.
be anything
Hey,
what
you
he's
can-
depicting.
Spin a good tale.
Yeah, I promise you won't understand me, but you should join us.
I got rather high up in,
Liesel
Toastmasters.
took my first class I taught here at the church.
And I must say the class has grown.
Yeah,
immensely.
that
It's
was-
wonderful.
That was, hang on though, that
There were no
was
babies.
6 years ago? There was no wife.
There was no white, well,
There-
she wasn't quite.
Yeah,
the
she was
right
I had a fiance back then. Now she's my ex-fiance, current wife.
Yeah.
So, yes.
yet. With 3 babies.
Yeah, I've had 3 kids since then, but yeah, that was 6,
That was a while ago.
no,
7?
7, coming up on, this month is, got here October 2012, so, yeah. I know, crazy. All right, good to
Okay,
see
I'll
you.
see you. Bye. Bye-bye.
So anyways, sorry, yeah, I've been here 7 years now, I guess 12, 13.
Wow.
Yeah, 7 years. So I'm not a math teacher. I hate that. Same with English stuff. Like in my class, secret about me, I am an awful speller. So if you feel like I can't fingerspell stuff because I'm a bad speller, I promise you I'm worse. So I was that kid in elementary school who was always out in the practice round of the spelling bee. So I'm bad. And my students would be like, Mr. Hall, what they asked me the other day, how do you spell Guatemala? And I'm like,
You're kidding.
I don't know. Why would I know that? They're like, you're a teacher. I'm like, not an English teacher. Look it up. So,
Well, I think have any of them asked you can you spell in sign language, and they look at you and it's like weird look.
you know what's funny though? Sometimes I'll do that. They're like, how do you spell this? And I'll just like
You know what I
get
do?
back to what I was doing.
Do some of
Someone
them
asks how to
actually?
spell something, I go D,
Mm-hmm.
I, C, and I just spell out dictionary, and then because they start writing.
I had one time in a class I was spelling something and a student made a joke about something. And they might have used some kind of inappropriate language or something. And so I was like, and I went, and they went, wait, what? They were like, again. Referral! Oh! Just their face was priceless. It took them like 3 minutes to figure out how to spell referral, and then when they got it, they were like, oh, wait! That's for me. So I didn't actually give them a referral. It's just that interaction was punishment enough. But it was, yes. So train gone, you missed the boat. And it's not coming back. Sometimes you'll see some variations on this. Sometimes people, you'll tell them train gone, and they'll go, like, bring it back. Bring it back. Sometimes you'll see, train blows up. Sometimes you'll see train gone, and then they'll have the smoke settle, like the dust settle behind the train. So you'll see variations on that sign, but the basics of it is train gone. So, all right. So, funny none.
Kind of like the classifiers you're bringing into that one.
Yes, those are classifiers. Yes, so like the train coming back or the dust settling, those are
I'm
classifiers.
just pulling
so.
their previous lessons.
No, you're right, and that's an important thing to remember. I know I teach classifiers separate, but classifiers are not a separate part of the language. All of this is mixed up together and shaken up a lot. It's all, it's all part of the same language. I mean, you can go from, using one of the idioms to using, say, oh, my son, they, in ASL, you switch these up simultaneously all the time. These are not like separate things. We teach them separate. Maybe I'm doing you all a disservice, but I don't know. But I teach them separate, but they're not separate things. Like they are all used together. It's just like in English class. If you're, kid learning English, they learn the present tense, And then later they learn the past tense. Well, in real life, we use those back and forth all the time. All the time. Or like in Spanish class, Spanish 1, I thought for the longest time everything was just present tense, They just didn't speak in the past tense. They didn't need to know it.
I
So then
noticed,
they confused me with all those other conjugations. Yes, ma'am?
ASL, cause I'm TESOL
Yes.
certified. So I noticed this is a lot like teaching English to speakers of other languages. We
Yes.
pretty much teach it the way we speak it.
Yep.
So the idioms come out and all the other fluff around it.
Yep, that's why I like to teach them. And one of my big advice I give to new-ish, like kind of more like intermediary, signers, people who are getting ready to start interpreting, is to, when you're interpreting something, always try to put it into idioms if you can. Even if they didn't say an idiom, try to put it into an idiom. So, if he's saying, I walked up and I realized that, I just missed what was going on in the room. You say, I walked in and realized train gone. Try to put it into idioms because it just makes the language flow so much better. And same if you're going from ASL into English, try to put idioms in there. Work in idioms because that's how people talk. We talk with a lot of idioms. And now that I'm pointing this out to y'all be like, oh, there's an idiom. So, and if y'all want to impress your English teachers, y'all who are still in school, they'll be impressed maybe.
Just yell.
Or they won't care, one of the two. So, they might just be overworked and haven't had enough coffee that day. Oh no. Yes, you had a question too. Your hand is up.
No, sorry.
Okay. Oh no, you're fine. So, train gone. Funny none. That's the one we're on. Funny none. This one is not just used with funny. It could be used with a lot of different signs, but the point is that there's none after it. We don't talk like that. We don't say, that's funny none. We don't say that. But the deaf will go all the time, funny none. What's some other examples I've seen of that? Now that I've said it, I'm gonna, interesting none. Play none. It means that it's serious. An example I saw this at a workshop where one of the speakers was doing ASL idioms, because this is the kind of stuff that interpreters get together on their professional development days and bring in a speaker and have them teach them idioms all day. So you can go real deep with this topic. And so he used us the example of he was deaf and he's saying if I'm working at a deaf school and there's a fire drill and all the kids are playing, I say like that. It's, serious, not funny. Serious here. So that's an example of funny none. Funny none. It's not funny. Serious. So you'll see us use that one. We use that one a lot in church. You'll notice us, now that I tell you, if you watch us interpret, you'll see us use that pretty regularly. Usually it comes up at least once every Sunday, that construction of using, something and then none. So funny none, or, there you go. Hey, there's another idiom for you in ASL. It just dropped out of my mind. It's in my mind and then it just disappeared. Yep. There's another idiom for you. That one's free.
Would that be a classifier?
Kind of. In some ways it's a classifier, but not really, because it's just that sign on its own. It doesn't really do anything else. Classifiers, you get to choose what it does. I mean, this one, that's just the sign.
I like it.
So, yeah, there's another idiom for you. So funny none. This one's fun. So, swallow the fish. That's the fish's tail hanging out of your mouth. It's like with a Y. Can you do it? You're laughing at me. You gotta try it.
Okay, I have a slightly just interesting question. Have you ever done that sign in class?
Yes.
And if so, what was their first reaction? Just confusion?
The deaf student got it. Usually the deaf student's like, the other students, if they're paying attention to me, are kind of like, what? Normally though, like when I'm interpreting in a class, honestly, the only person who really watches me after about a week and a half is the deaf student.
Okay.
And 80% of the time, they don't watch me either. So, especially working at the high school level, the students don't watch the interpreters. They just sit on their phones or they just zone out. They just not interested. But they don't listen to the teachers either, so I get it. So most of the time they don't even notice because honestly, like I said, after like a week or two, nobody even notices the interpreter anymore. It's just, you're just the fly on the wall once they realize you're not like taking notes on how they're doing, or
They
you're
smack
not
you.
gonna like, rat out to the teacher like that student's cheating or anything like that, which you might think you would do that as an interpreter, but it's actually bad for the student. Because if the other students see you as like an authority figure, then they talk differently to the student, and that's not fair to them. So, and it's not my job. So, y'all haven't realized with me, I don't like to do extra work. I'm just kidding. But it is though. It affects how the students interact with the deaf student, and so that's not fair for them. So, they should have the same experience. That's why it's like when I was an interpreter, I always went by Mr. Cody. I was never Mr. Holland. It's always Mr. Cody. At least at high school. At elementary school, it's different because you're an adult. They see you, oh, he's an adult, but at high school, I think I told this story before. I had a deaf 5th grader one time. Did I tell this story? They were supposed to line up outside of class. This was a long time ago. So she was in 5th grade. And so they were supposed to line up outside of class, and she was like talking to her friend or whatever, goofing around. And so the teacher was around the corner and said, "Line up." And so, I was like, "Teacher said you need to line up." And she looks at me and she goes, "You're not my teacher." I'm like, "Yeah, actually I'm not." Fair enough. And so I was like, "You're right," because the interpreter. So anyways, that's just my little.
Well, could that teacher speak sign language?
No, the teacher knew basic signs, but not really a lot. Not like I did.
So she could tell the kid to come on, like, just to move?
Oh, yeah. But she didn't notice. So, fair is fair. I mean, doesn't get caught, you're fine. So, when I was an interpreter, especially in high school, I'd play a game where I'd play, during tests, I'd play Spot the Cheaters. And so I would sit back and try to see how many students I could catch cheating. That was always an eye-opening experience because they cheat a lot. They're over there, like, you see their phones coming out. They're over there, usually it's the phones or the whispering, but, some of them get real creative. You see, like, little note cards and stuff. And, yeah, anyway.
So there's not some kind of a thing in school these days where on test days they gotta drop their phones in the local basket or
Here's what they do. Kids are smart. So they have 2 phones. So they have their phone and they have their dummy phone. And so when the teacher has them give them their phone, they put their dummy phone in there, and they still have their good phone.
Wowzer, Batman.
I know. I had a student one time, just in the middle of class. I don't know why he thought this was a good idea, but he just pulls his phone out. He's like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm in class right now," and just starts video chatting with someone. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of teaching, and I'm looking at him like, "Give it here, man." And he's like, "I gotta go." And so he hangs me the phone. I turn around to walk back up to the front. I hear, "Hey, the teacher just took my phone." He pulled a flip phone out of his pocket and started calling the same person.
Oh my goodness.
So you have to remember a flip phone.
Yes, he had an extra flip phone in his pocket. So I couldn't even get mad. He gave me the flip phone too. I was like, "You have to give me that one too." He's like, "I do." He did. All of a sudden, he just did the same thing. "Hey, teacher just took my phone."
Yeah, he doesn't get an A for brains.
No. No, but that's what they do. They have extra phones, so that's
They're getting smarter groups.
they're tricky. They're tricky. You have to really, just because you take their phone doesn't mean anything. Y'all do, and then God forbid they have a smartwatch. Then their phone could be all the way on the other side of the room, and they can still easily. Same thing with the earbuds. Now that they have like the AirPods, where there's 2 of them, they just give someone else the AirPod, and there you go. Now they can, at least hear the same thing if they got answers playing or something like that. So.
Answers playing. That's insane.
They'll do stuff like take the water bottles and write real little on the label, and then when they put it up to the water magnifies it.
Wait, someone's done that?
Oh yeah, girls with long nails will write the answers on the back of their nails.
What?
What? I've heard stories of girls, especially a girl wearing a skirt, will write the answer on her thigh while she's sitting there and just kind of like look at her legs and the answers are
You're
right
giving them
there.
ideas.
I
Let's
had a
see,
friend
what else
who
did I do?
would like write. She had white Converse, and she'd like draw on them.
On her shoes?
On her shoes, she'd draw on them. So when she'd like write an equation
Yeah,
for a
but
math
that's old
answer,
hat there. That's
What?
like from the 50s. The skirt thigh thing and the shoe
Yeah.
bottom deal, that's like from the 50s.
Alright, well the skirt thing was new for me, but I didn't have a lot of experience with that one in high school, so so yes, it was yeah, they get real creative. Yeah, anyway, so that's there you all go, a little lesson on how to cheat in high school. And that your teachers are onto you, we know.
they just don't care.
It's hard to catch or sometimes you just don't
Photo
care.
That's not what you can
Yes.
do.
I always tell my students the story also when I was in high school, and then I'll actually get back on topic. I caught someone cheating off my test, my paper, and so he was sitting next to me, kept looking over, so I wrote down all the wrong answers, waited for him to go turn in his paper, then changed all my answers. So,
That's so funny.
that was a good day. So,
Wait, did you actually grade him fairly, or like, cause I noticed
no,
like
this was
cheating.
when I was a student.
He won't copy off you again.
No, he didn't. Taught him a lot. It was really funny. It was more of, because I think we were at least friendly. I don't remember if we were like friends or anything like that, but you know, we were at least, you know, we'd see each other and talk to each other. And he was like, "Why'd you do that?" I'm like, "That was hilarious."
Do you remember his name?
I don't remember his
Then
name.
you guys weren't
That
friends.
I remember it was 9th grade English. Please, I barely remember my teacher's name. From 9th grade English.
And you probably weren't friends with them.
258. No, I was not friends with my 9th grade English teacher. So, although I do remember I saw her walking around in the mall holding hands with another teacher when I was in high school, and I was like, like my mind was just blown. It was, you know, like how dare she have a life outside of school?
Especially with a teacher.
Yeah, I know. She was a teacher. That's what I tell my students, because they'll be like, because what my students do, they Google all their teachers. And you Google Cody Holland, Daytona Beach, you find what I do here at the church, like first thing. And so that you don't do that?
No, she said
You
she
do?
does.
Oh my goodness.
And so most of them know. I mean, they know I went to school to be a pastor, and they, you know, they look me up and they're like, "Whoa!" And you can see videos of me preaching and stuff. But some of them are like, "I can't imagine Mr. Holland preaching." I'm like, "Oh yeah, God forbid I have a life outside of here." And they were like, "Yeah, that's right. You're supposed to sleep in here. You're supposed to have a bed back in the lab over there." So 258. That's our next one. 258. This one's used like, you know, someone's talking. Like, it means it's very interesting. Notice my hand shapes. 2, 5, 8. Very interesting. So 2, 5, 8. Very interesting.
So like 2.
Yep, 5, 8. So you just go 2, 5, 8. Very interesting.
Dude, what's the 8?
8 is at the end. Yeah, some people do interesting, but you also see interesting.